Okay, and we are live. So welcome to episode 34 of TLC, Tech Learn Coffee. I am your host along with Nancy Minikotzi. My name is Lisa Nowakowski, and I'm a fifth grade teacher in South Monterey County.
And I'm Nancy, an instructional tech coach in Northwest LA County.
And just a reminder that our format is a 15-minute podcast because why? Because nobody's got time for more than that.
Absolutely. And tonight's coffee fact, if we were just talking about how soon we have to go back to school, but if you still have some vacation time left and you love coffee, you might consider visiting the Unison, that's YUNESSUN spa in Japan, southwest of Tokyo. You can soak in traditional hot springs, but you can also have green tea, red wine, or you guessed it, coffee. The coffee bath is supposed to be relaxing, reinvigorating, and good for your skin, but don't drink it after you've been soaking in it.
Yuck. Or relaxing. Yes. All right. So on to tonight's guest. Tonight we have David Platt, who will be talking to us about lesson design and ELLs, our English language learners. So David, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, that sort of thing.
Well, first and foremost, I am married to a beautiful woman. Her name's Stephanie. And I have 2 children. I love my kids. I have 3 dogs. Yeah, three dogs. Yes, I had to count. I have 3 dogs and a whole tank of fish. I am a teacher. I have been teaching for 17 years and teaching German for that time, and also computer applications, and now computer science, and I'm transitioning into teaching EL as well. So I have been doing all classroom stuff and tech-related things with my curriculum in my classroom since day one back in 2001, and things were a little bit different back then, but. Let's see. I also have a coffee fact for you. I have had Kopi Luwak coffee, also known as poop coffee, right? So it's the one where the cats eat the beans and poop them out, and then someone goes and takes them and cleans them up, and then they have that coffee. But the coffee that I had that is Kopi Luwak is the fake stuff from Vietnam. They have a fake version that somehow they make over in Vietnam. But I will say it was probably the best coffee I've ever had besides Kona.
All right. So hopefully, and inspired by you last time, we did talk about the Kopi Luwak coffee. So it's all inspired by you. So what does lesson design look like for you, and how does lesson design differ from lesson planning?
Oh gosh, that's such a good question, because a lot of times I think people confuse it. I have problems with dogs in the background. You probably hear my dogs.
That's okay. It's not me this time, so I'm happy.
Yeah, my dog. Liam. Can you take your dog outside, please? Nope, take her outside, please. Fine, I will put her up here, and maybe she'll be good. Because Chihuahuas are like the worst dog ever. Seriously, they're like the worst dog ever. And I happen to have one because my son loves this dog, and yeah. So anyway.
We do what we do for our kids.
We do what we do for our kids. So difference between lesson design, lesson planning. I think a lot of people get these things mixed up, and it's not the same. So I think lesson design, you can have lesson plans, and you can have hundreds of lesson plans. And there's probably many of us that still have hundreds of lesson plans tucked away in some thing called a file cabinet that is actually written on paper, and we actually have these things. But lesson design comes down to actually a set of like procedures or protocols that we follow when we're creating our lessons. And you can have like a core set procedures that you follow or things that you go to when you are doing your lessons. So for me, I have Iron Chef Lesson Designer Pechakucha that I go to a lot. When I'm doing checking for understanding, I go to a lot of the quick formative tools, whether it's I'm using Go Formative, or I'm using quizzes, or I'm using Kahoot. I'm having students do writing, and I can do that and use Google Docs, and they're doing quick writes through comics, or they're using Storybird to do writing inspiration. So what I think then when you come with lesson design is you have this set of protocols, this set of procedures that you're following, and it's really condensed. John Carippo says, hey, maybe you have between 10 and 12 protocols that are your go-to. I have probably about 8 or 9 protocols that are my go-to given protocols at any given time when I'm creating a lesson, and I might use those within creating a lesson plan. So I don't have 100 lesson plans anymore. I have my protocols, I have my procedures that I follow, and I mix and work those in to create a lesson that is meeting the needs of the students. And that's what I think also a lesson plan doesn't do. As well as a lesson plan, it can be something from your book. It can be something from some class that you're supposed to teach, and all of the curriculum can be online, but they're like pre-cut lesson plans, and they have pre-cut things that they're telling you to do, but that's not geared towards the individual learner. Whereas you're creating your lesson, you have lesson design, you have your protocols and procedures, and you can gear those to your individual learner.
That's a really great explanation of the difference between the two. Thank you. That really cleared a lot of stuff, I'm sure, for a lot of our listeners, and for me too, because I wasn't sure what the difference was. So thank you for that. I think a lot of us do that, but don't know the actual for it. So you already talked about, why, you should use lesson design, and why it meets the needs of individual students. Is there ever a time that we should use the layouts that's provided for us in all of our TEs, and that our districts have so diligently and lovingly bought for us?
Now, I would say I am very much one to think outside the box and not go with those pre-cut lesson plans. I will say that there is a need, and it's necessary to follow like the 7-step lesson plan. The good old Madeline Hunter 7 is super important, because those are like the key ingredients to create an effective lesson. Okay, you do need a preview, you do need check for understanding, you do need some modeling or some input, you do need guided practice, you do need independent practice. Those things that you do need, and those are throughout those type of lessons. But what I think is important is if you're getting like those pre-cut lessons or those cookie cutter ones, and they're saying, hey, this is your teacher's edition, these are the lessons that are in there. Yeah, you can look at that framework and you can say, okay, how do my protocols fit within that? So if they're telling me I have to use this, how can I use my protocol so that the individual learner then is addressed?
Oh, that's so great. Still looking at the individual learners in our classrooms. So you also we wanted to talk to you about designing lessons for ELLs. Is there a difference between our EO students designing lessons for them and our ELLs? Is there a difference, or is it basically the same?
You know what, I'm going to argue that it's basically the same. So after teaching German for 17 years, and now that they're giving me EL classes, okay, I'm looking at it the same way. Okay, I'm giving the students the same type of input. I'm just doing it now in English. It's English, it's not German. So it's reps, repetition, learning to use the language appropriately. And a lot of those same procedures, those same things that I go to for teaching a foreign language applies exactly the same for our English learners. They're learning a foreign language. Their foreign language is English. So I'm using those same exact skills, and a lot of it does come back to reps and being able to use the language repetitively. How are they going to get better by it? By using it. How are they going to get better by their writing? By continuously doing it, making those mistakes, learning and failing forward, as a lot of us like to say. But it's the same. So there's some people that might argue that against that and say, no, you have to do these special skills that you need for your ELL students, and no, you don't. It's the same thing as if you were to teach a student beginning algebra. Okay, and you're breaking down those skills for beginning algebra. Okay, you're doing the same thing for basic skills for a language. You're doing basic skills for writing. Yeah, EL students have to have the same exact thing. So it's reps, and it's going back and doing the procedure over and over and over, mixing different ways in how they do that. Students aren't always going to open up a Google Doc and be doing writing on a Google Doc. Okay, they're going to be doing a lot of different things to be able to bring writing out. And it might be a tech tool, it might not be a tech tool, and tech is not always necessarily part of the lesson. Okay, it might not be the end product, but again, it's all about repetition and doing those same protocols.
I'm so glad you said repetitions too. John Carippo, again mentioning him, is very famous for saying you just need the repetitions in his 8 parts of speech and all those things. And yeah, it's all about the reps and getting used to it. So you also said that you do like robotics and coding and things like that. So how does all of that fit into the lesson design?
How does all that fit into lesson design? Well, see, I do a lot. I teach computer science also. So I teach computer science intro and AP computer science principles. I run the student tech leadership class at my school. So a lot of that is programming, and robotics is a lot part of that. But programming and robotics is also can be a part of any of those curriculums. So what I think of for lesson design, that becomes one of my go-tos. That becomes one of my procedures, is doing things for coding and bringing that into lessons. So pseudocode is a super important way to teach students how to write. Okay, students are writing down the procedures, what they want a robot to do. They put a robot together. Now they have to write the code for it. Well, they don't necessarily know the code, but you teach them pseudocode, and pseudocode gives them the starting point to actually do writing, and they can do writing and then be able to talk about what they want the robot to do. And then you can get into the whole programming aspect and bring programming into it of what the students are supposed to do with a programming language, whether they're doing Scratch or they're doing Python, or they're doing another type of block code like MakeCode or iForge, or any of those tools that are out there. I think that a lot of it does start with pseudocode, though, and I think pseudocode is super important to get students to understand the logic of programming, and then also gets them into the being able to write what they want to actually happen.
So pseudocode, is that a beginning type language? Is it something that they make up? Is it saying that I want the robot to walk 5 steps forward? Can you explain a little bit what pseudocode is for our listeners and me?
Sure. Yeah. The pseudocode can have like certain syntax, certain ways of writing that you want something to do, but it can also be a lot more simplified than that. So pseudocode and whether it's an elementary student, it could be an English student, it can be an EL student. Oh my goodness, we're almost done.
It's 1 minute to start wrapping it up, but go ahead. I'm interested in learning a little bit more about this pseudocode. Go.
But you could be writing down the code, what you want basically the robot to do, but it's not actually a given language. So you might say, bot, go forward 2 feet, turn left 90 degrees, scan for object, if no object, go forward, if object, turn right, And it gives a layout of what you want a program to do, but it's not actual programming language. But you see the logic of what the program is supposed to do.
Oh, okay. That's awesome. And is that an actual program that you have to download to do, or is it just kind of walking through it like with the kids and they actually go through it like walk?
You can go through the basic syntax of what you would want a student to do, or how they would describe what they want to actually have happen in the program. But yeah, I can say that there is certain syntax, I guess, you're supposed to follow with pseudocode, but you don't have to fall within those boundaries. You can say, okay, kids, I want you to describe what you want your robot to do in simple language.
Nice.
It's not a programming language, it's just logic, okay? And it gets them thinking about, okay, this is what you want it to do. I have students go to whiteboards and they write it down on a whiteboard what they want their program to do. Then they argue about it, they talk about it in a small group, what they want it to do, and then they have to be able to explain back to the class what they want their bot to do. Then they can go to actual programming language, and then they see the logic of what they want to have happen, and they put it together.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you. Nancy?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that's great, because that's an easy way too for EL students to use language in a meaningful way. But they don't have to use a lot of language, so they can use what they know, and I really like that.
Yep, and it gets them talking about stuff that most kids care about programming a robot, and they can start caring about. They'll talk about stuff, present about stuff, write about stuff that they care about. That's
true.
All right. So that's the end of this episode. So we went a little bit over, but we were really interested. I was really interested too with the whole pseudocode. I had never heard of that. So thank you. I learned something new. I love learning new things. Yes, so so thank you for listening, and if you enjoyed the show tonight, so please go ahead and leave us a comment and let us know. So you can leave us a comment here. Join us again on Monday, August 21st, and we're going to have a little bit of an adjustment on the time. It's going to be at 5:30. What are we? We're Pacific, so 5:30 Pacific Standard Time. So our guest will be Aida Awad. I hope I said her name right. And she will be talking to us about GeoTools. We love GeoTools.
GeoTools are the best. So remember, we're always looking for guests to share the great things they're doing in their classrooms. If you know someone who fits the bill, or if you'd like to be a guest, please visit tlc.ninja and complete the contact form to let us know. So, thank you very much for listening. Oh, and tonight's comment question, if you are have you ever heard of pseudocode? Do you use it? Are you going to use it now? We'd love to know. So please put that in the comments. Be sure to subscribe. And if you like the video, give us a thumbs up. Thanks.